Hey, what's up? Ryan from Sports Card Radio. Here again, another little, call this the R-rated podcast. Several topics today before we head off to Las Vegas a little later today for the Topps 65th anniversary party, which is actually not in Las Vegas, it's in Henderson, which I believe is about 15-20 minutes away. Never been there. Don't want to talk mess on it if I've never been there. So, gonna go off to do that. Spend 3-4 days in Vegas, hang out. I was there a couple weeks ago. Got a sports bet to cash. I bet $100 on the Lakers. They were +5, but they lost the game. But I think they only lost by 2, so that's a winner. Cash that ticket at the Aria. Hang out for 2 days, staying at the Vidara. I don't think I have a room yet for Tuesday, so we'll just figure something out on Tuesday. Probably maybe just stay at the Vidara also on Tuesday. Go to Henderson on Wednesday for the Topps party. I haven't figured out what my plans are for that. I'll talk a little bit about that part. I'll call it the pre-party on the show. Like, what are my expectations? What am I going to do? I'll cover it in some kind of way. I'm not really sure yet. That'll all be kind of probably on the fly actually when I'm there and just kind of see how it's all set up. I may just have a phone. I have a couple different cell phones. I may just put one of my phones on a live stream and just set it on the table and just let it roll. I don't know. I'll think about that. Anyways, a bunch of different topics today. Let's see. Quick topic on overpaying for stuff. I did that the other day, overpaying, and kind of remind me of overpaying for baseball cards. We've probably all done that. Bought a domain. I'll talk about that and what website that is. It was just a domain. I'll throw some things on it. Looking for some suggestions if anybody has some. Talk about the Topps party, of course. I'll go over the big check out my cards account. I have 32,000 cards for sale. So I'll talk about how the whole year went and some really surprising numbers with the eBay and Amazon partnership. That was astonishing. Fixed Sports Card Radio. I'll touch on that a little bit. And that website should be good to go on most or all platforms. A few shout outs, another podcast, another sports card website. I'll give a shout out. And I'll talk about a little ePack tip since I'm not so mad at Upper Deck ePack anymore. I log in occasionally. I've probably only done a few trades in the last couple of months, but I log in maybe once or twice a week and at least get my free pack. Overpaying, we'll get the cringe topic out first and foremost. I did this the other day. I was bidding on not a sports card domain, but just another domain, like in the home and garden niche. And I'm on the site, and it's been a while since I bought a domain. And the bid was like at $25, and I was thinking, okay. And there was like a few minutes left in the auction, and I was like, well, I'll probably pay $50 for this or whatever. So I typed 30. You got to bid in $5 increments, so I put 32 in the bid box, and I didn't think it took, so I had to type it again. Lo and behold, when I clicked freaking bid, I had bid, my highest bid was $3,232 because I put 32 twice, and I was like, oh my goodness, how do I cancel this? Cancel. And finding a way to cancel your bid on this auction site was not easy, and I was like, oh no. And my whole worry was like, wow, I'm gonna get shill bidded up to like 1,000 and like have to back out of this or pay for this or whatever. So thankfully, I guess the auction also had a buy it now for $150. Oh, and I'll say when I typed in 3232, it shot the thing up to $105, way more than I would have wanted to pay. I pay $50, $60 max. So now my high bid is already $50 more than I'm gonna pay. And the buy it now is $150. And I'm like, dang it. I just should buy this now instead of, because what happens on this site, it's not like eBay. The buy it now can keep raising up. Like, it's weird. Like, this site's a little funkydelic. Flippa.com is the site I usually buy sites and domains off of. But so I just went ahead and did the $150 buy it now. Transferred it. Thankfully, the transfer took like 2 minutes. And I haven't put anything on it. The domain's lawntrailer.com. I guess I don't have to not shout that one out. So it's a 2-word domain. Lawn Trailer. I guess a lot of people call them different things. I was talking to my buddy who lives out in the country. You could call it a lawn cart, you could call it a dump cart, you could call it all kinds of little different things, but it's basically something you would attach onto like an ATV or a lawnmower that carries around, maybe some sod or some dirt or whatever. Basically like it ends up being like a huge wheelbarrow basically that attaches to your back of your ATV or your lawnmower or something. So these are high ticket items. I mean, a good one's going to run you $400 or $500. So this is a site that I would put up basically some reviews or information about all the different really good lawn trailers that you could buy online. And then probably run ads to it, because it's not something where you're going to be getting, you're not going to get 10,000 hits on your lawn trailer site. But even if you got 100 hits and you got one conversion a day, or you got one conversion a month, wherever you had to work it, these are high ticket items. You're going to be getting a little bit of money for it. So, but I clearly overpaid for it. So, a lot less motivated to work on it after you overpay for something. But maybe out there you've been on eBay and you overpay for cards. I mean, I can, we probably can all think about stories about overpaying for sports cards and on eBay, or maybe even at a show, or maybe at the time you didn't think you overpaid, but then looking back, like hindsight, like, oh, why did I buy those Tim Couch rookie cards? Or man, I got really into Johnny Football. Like, man, I paid way too much for those. So probably all have those stories. Probably have more of those stories about, overpaying than we do about, man, I bought that card for $5 and it shot to 50. We probably have more stories about the bust and the overpays, or hopefully you don't, but I know certainly in my, kind of card predicting game, certainly it's not, unless it's on Check on My Cards. I'm not good about buying cards on eBay and speculating and do all that stuff. Unless it's on Check on My Cards, I wouldn't be the person to ask about that. The good news, I bought another, kind of to steam off overpaying for lawntrailer.com. I bought vintagebaseballcards.com. There was a couple things on it. He had a Twitter account that I also got from him. I think it's like Vintage Ball Cards or something like that. So it's vintagebaseballcards.com. I've just started to throw up a little bit of content just to kind of get it to see what I could do with it. The one thing I do like about vintage cards is that, man, there's like one set a year for, 100 years practically, 70 years. There's, one or two sets a year, and there's certain key players and there's certain key cards. And obviously now today with grading, the grade makes all the difference. A PSA 8, Pete Rose rookie card could be worth a few thousand more than a PSA 7. I mean, it's astonishing. The higher grade, once you start getting to the 8s and the 9s, and then you rarely see a 10, but if you, the 10s are like, out of this world. So I just thought, it was a catchy domain. It's like an exact match domains, vintage baseball cards. There's probably a lot of people who just search that. So, or something attached to that, Mickey Mantle vintage baseball cards, or Mickey Mantle vintage cards or something. Obviously something like vintagecards.com would probably be more desirable, but that would have cost a lot more money. So vintagebaseballcards.com. I'll be throwing up some information. If you got any ideas or insight, I'm kind of having to go through and learn some of these sets and how all things work. I'll probably put up some checklists. I'll probably just do baseball initially, but I think it is a site, even though it's vintage quote baseball unquote cards.com. I think I could easily put vintage football card information and basketball and stuff. When I bought it, I was like, when do I stop? Like, what is a vintage baseball card? Is it pre-1980? That's kind of what my, thought was, but I don't know. I mean, you don't have to, out here in California, you don't have a Spaga card that's 30 years or older. So maybe that should be the definition of what a vintage, baseball card really is. In that case, it would be, you would get into the 80s. I think, before they really started to mass produce cards, really in the late 80s, maybe 80 going on 86, 87, 88, 89 and on up, some of those early 80s sets, baseball sets are, have some value, have some key players. I'm thinking like Tony Gwynn, maybe Cal Ripken. There's some other guys in there too, like very key rookie cards. obviously the basketball cards in that day were very scarce. Topps stopped making basketball cards there in the 80s, and it was kind of picked up by Star. You have those XRC Michael Jordan Star cards and stuff. So, and those were like sold by the team sets even. So there's a lot of interesting things about vintage baseball cards. And since I go to these, I go to the National, I go to these card shows, I see way more vintage cards actually than I do, modern cards. So, and I was surprised. I've gone through about maybe 50 different vintage cards just to kind of see the price. And I'm going to maybe kind of track some of the little pricing on there. And I'm like, man, dude, $1,000 for a mid-grade Ted Williams, second, third year card doesn't seem like that much. I actually think there's some room to grow on some of these cards as grading becomes more acceptable and some of the fleshing out of the population reports and, what cards really have value. It seems like with vintage cards, collectors really have their favorite sets. I mean, there's certain years. Even the great example, the 1952 Topps Mickey Mantle card, which might be the most, or certainly one of the most recognizable cards in the hobby, along with the Honus Wagner, and I would say the '89 King Griffey Jr. rookie. And these are cards that even people who don't have never collected baseball cards. They see an image of this and it something still registers even for people, they say, oh, I've seen that before. Oh, my little brother had one of those. So the 1952, that's the interesting thing. Everybody in the hobby probably knows this, but the interesting thing about the 1952 Topps Mickey Mantle is not even his rookie card because he has a 51 Bowman. And, there might even be some little oddball sets too that predated that, 52 card. I don't think so, but they didn't put Mickey Mantle. Topps had a 1951 set that was a little different, had a different card size, and they like red and blue backs and stuff. They didn't put Mickey in that, but he was obviously the key card in the 52 set. But so collectors clearly have their favorites. It's not just all about the rookie card, because if that was the case, the 1951 Bowman would be the card to get. But it happens to be his second year card. So you see that sometimes with cards. Certainly the Honus Wagner, I'm not sure if that's his rookie or not, but certainly that card has gotten a lot of attention and has value because, famously Honus Wagner wanted that card removed, or didn't want that card sold in tobacco products. And that's how baseball cards really, I believe, were all from tobacco products. So vintage baseball cards really cool. I'm going to have to really dive into the history, and there's a lot of good websites and there's some good forums. The PSA forum, there's a Net 54 forum where there's a lot of great information about vintage cards. You could go through and read old newspaper articles from the past through like Google and stuff and different web services where I could literally go back, search these sets, and find like super dated news articles about something, maybe some sold, maybe an advertisement, maybe something where you could just get a little insight about the history of these cards, and certainly a little bit of the history before they become real popular and before like the values blew up and it all became about grading. Be interesting to really kind of study the history and then piece together a website from that, whether it's putting up checklists similar to like on Sports Card Radio, how there's checklists, and kind of go through some of the modern sets. Maybe I'll do that over here. I'm not really sure yet. Don't really know what I'll do. But I think it's interesting. I think it ties into some of the national, going to the national and being around, basically, especially the Chicago show, which is like a vintage card museum, even more so than the other shows. And that's one thing to keep in mind if you come out to Chicago. I mean, this is like a vintage museum. That's really how the Chicago show really feels for me. Little less like wheeling and dealing and 10-cent boxes and stuff and, dollar bins and stuff. It's more, man, you go to every table and there's a high-end vintage grade and you ask him how much. He's like, oh, yeah, that one's, 10,000 or whatever. And you're like, whoa. So, yeah, vintagebaseballcards.com. Work on that side a little bit and have some fun with it. And let me know if you have any ideas for me, because I'm certainly looking for them. The Topps Party. 65th anniversary party, if you don't know about it. It be Wednesday, January 18th, Henderson, Nevada. It's at the Westin spot. I've been to Vegas like 40 times and I've never been to Henderson, I don't think, or went over there. So Be a new experience for me. Get off the strip. Go to this new spot. How you got into the party was passes were in. One pass was inside each box of 2016 Topps Transcendent Baseball, which was that $27,000 SRP product they came out with. So most of these were obtained in group breaks and stuff. Blowout Sports Cards, the guy who runs that, was like heavily buying. He's bought a bunch. Like, it's going to be Blowout Sports Cards. It's Topps employees, Kris Bryant, and a few close friends. From what I understand, that Blowout Sports Cards definitely bought quite a few passes for more than I paid. I paid like $2,500. I think toward the end they got down to about $1,900, $2,000. So I probably overpaid a little bit, but at the end of the day, I will produce some content for this. It'll be, I haven't looked closely enough to see if it'll be a full or half write-off. Some of it might be a half write-off. Some of it, so, it'll be the most expensive podcast ever produced in the history of sports cards when I do the Topps 65th anniversary wrap-up podcast. And definitely probably won't write anything about it. I'm not really much of a writer. So, we'll come back, have a little podcast. I got to probably try to shoot some kind of video. But definitely wouldn't only go if it was on the West Coast or if it was in Vegas or if it was in Arizona. Definitely would not have gone if this was in New York City or Chicago or anywhere on the East Coast. Definitely not a trip I want to be making in January anywhere where it's cold. It's already cold enough here. So certainly wouldn't want to go anywhere, but it's in Vegas. I go to Vegas quite often. Very familiar with Vegas. I got a sports ticket. I got a cash. Might as well dive into the Topps party. Certainly might be a once they say it's this once in a lifetime event. I certainly do not expect that. It hopefully isn't the coolest thing that happens to me on this trip. Honestly, I mean, if the Topps party is the best thing that happens to me on the trip, it was just probably an average. It's just an average trip to Vegas. So my expectations are pretty low. I have a feeling we'll be paraded into some kind of room. We've already been given dinner choices. The way it worked, you got your pass, and then you had to email promotions@topps.com. There was a serial number sticker on the back of the Transcendent invitation, and there was corresponding, each invitation was serial numbered. So you sent them both numbers. You sent them all your information. Topps is comping a one-night hotel room at the Westin. They said if you wanted to, stay further, you could just leave their credit card and it would just be a normal rate. I don't know what that is, $150 or something. I don't do. I mean, I'm staying on a strip, baby. Vidara, 5-star. Google that spot. And if you've ever been there, you know what I'm talking about. Place is legit. So I like to stay there. I like to stay at the MGM properties and stuff, or at least the Aria, Vidara. Those are the spots to stay right now. And the Vidara, man, if you're a guy, don't be afraid to head down to the spa, get the little massage, get the steam room, get this. They got like 4-5 different spas, and hook it up. But yeah, so the Topps party, I have a feeling, parade us into the room. We're gonna get. You had 3 choices: stuffed chicken, salmon, filet mignon. I went with the filet mignon. And yeah, we'll have dinner. Kris Bryant will walk in or be there at some point. Hopefully people will just go googly eyed over Kris Bryant. That would make my day. Like, I definitely don't need to even get close to this fool. I've seen this fool play in college. I've got incredible video of Kris Bryant in the batting cage, taking rounds of batting practice. And I have that on one of my YouTube accounts. I mean, it's really good video. There was a guy, I really want the video. There's a guy with a high definition camera filming for Major League Baseball, because this was when Kris Bryant was a junior and he was coming out and he was going to be a top 5 pick, and they had the tournament up here in Stockton. And so I was there taking video of him because I had heard about him, whatever, on Baseball America or wherever. And so I had that video, but there was a guy next to, I have that on a cell phone video and it looks pretty good, but there was a guy with like a dope camera that took all the rounds and probably then cut that up in. And then on the MLB, they have a back end website for, like, if you're a scout or if you're working the operations or whatever, that the MLB basically does a bunch of scouting reports, so you could go get their video. And I think that's what this guy was basically doing. He was filming information. He was filming some Kris Bryant. He filmed all the at-bats he had. I mean, there's probably just some incredible footage of Kris Bryant from that tournament here. So I certainly don't need to get close to him. I'd be sick to get like a exclusive autograph from that event on card by Kris Bryant. That would be worth something. That'd get a little of my $2,500 back probably. I probably would sell just about anything. Again, if it was Eddie Vedder, if the special guest was Eddie Vedder, the lead singer of Pearl Jam, I would be knocking over kids to get close to this fool. So I hope there's some people there that feel, this way about Kris Bryant, because I would just love to see like grown men like googly eyed over this kid. So that would be one of the highlights for me. I think that'd be almost be worth paying for. So, but I don't know. There's, I think there's going to be some employees there. I'm probably going to try to talk to them and just like bop pepper them. Maybe they'll be a little liquored up and like free flowing. Maybe they'll say something. So I'll certainly be asking a lot of questions. Doug and Dan from Mojo Break are going to be there. They got a couple passes, I think, or at least one. I think they scored the second one too. So they're coming out, I think, on the day of the show, or not the event of the party. And so they're going to be there. We might try to record something together because they do a podcast as well. They have a podcast on their website too, mojobreak.com podcast. I also was on that show for a while. It's a long running podcast. So yeah, they're going to be there. We might record something, but I don't know. I don't think we're going to go to the Strip. I think we're going to stay in Henderson, and who knows who else will be there as well. We could have a heck of a podcast if we got a bunch of the people in the room from the top 65th party and maybe some employees. I'm not that ambitious though, so certainly no promises. I'm certainly not that ambitious. I might rather just hit the craps table after it's all over than anything else, or go back to the Strip. Maybe the party's so bad that I'm like, man, I got to get back to the Strip. So we don't know. We just leave the book open, and that's the best way to play Vegas. Sometimes don't come in with a lot of expectations, just see what happens, and be willing to make a move if you have to. So that'll be the Tops party. I will definitely be just live and in person on Twitter for sure, because that's to me the best way to do these things. That's the best way to distribute content these days. Look at the media, look at the president, look at the way things are trending now. It's certainly not on your own site. It's certainly not, producing something and then releasing it afterwards. No, you got to be probably on there blasting it or setting up a live feed. I think that's a decent idea, since I have a few cell phones, and I could either jump on the Wi-Fi or I could just run it off the data or something and just put the phone on the table and whatever, just try to have a good angle, and people can just check in and see what it's like to blow 25,000, not 25,000, 2,500 and sit around with Tops and Kris Bryant and a bunch of men. So, wow, the more I think about this, the more I talk about the worst idea, this was. So, we got to move on. Check out my cards. So this is the big account. I have currently over 30,000 cards for sale. Haven't bought a card since December 1st, or that was the portfolio. Like, I am totally done with like searching for cards. Like, no way. Like, I just can't do that right now. But last year, 2016, 6,601 cards sold, for a total, this is a great number, perfect number, $3,001.19. The astonishing thing, though, is that I downloaded, you can download all the cards you sold, then you can quickly sort by, they allow you to sort by who bought your card, so I can easily find and split off all my eBay and all my Amazon sales. Then I can total that number up. Now here's the funny thing. I have 30,000 cards for sale, but I only pay about $4 in storage fees per month. So that means I only have about 400 of the 30,000, only 400 are priced over 75 cents. So it's pretty obvious. I play the low end game, the low risk, basically no risk game. no to low risk game, just flipping these little 25, 50-cent cards over and over and over again. And that has equated over the years to my overall sales are $30,161.30. Those are 75,000 cards sold. But last year, he's had the Amazon cross promotion for many years, but the eBay thing just started. Obviously, that's a big deal. A lot of people saw that as a big deal. And for a while, although I haven't heard anybody talk about that. I don't think they've officially publicized this. I'm seeing cards sell on eBay now that are priced below 75 cents. Like, more of my inventory is being listed onto eBay. But for a while, only about 400 of my cards, of my 30,000 cards, were listed on eBay. And here's the thing, I had 3,000 in sales last year. The total for my eBay and Amazon sales were like $330 when you added both of them up. So over 10% of my gross sales was from the eBay Amazon cross promotion, and only 400 of my 30,000 cards were listed for sale. So guess what? When I started to see that some of my 25-cent cards sold on eBay, my 50-cent cards sold, I was like, oh man, are they live now? Like, wow, that'd be great. Because if all 30,000 of my cards were for sale on eBay, that would be a great thing for me. It could really boost my sales to a new stratosphere. And I'll definitely be, once I save up, I only have $475 in there, so store credit. I'm going to work this up to maybe like, I don't know, $600-700, and then start looking for a portfolio or a couple of them. Because I don't have time to, like I said, I haven't bought a card, since December 1st, and that was a portfolio. So I've barely been on this site except to respond to offers, and that's it. Only when I get several offers per day, so you get that email, you just log in. Most of the time it's a quick accept, and you just move on with your day. So I was down to very little store credit too, so I've built this back up. Got $473 in there, got 31,000 cards for sale, still got 382 items I need to price. I have 5,300 cards not for sale. So I will say, anybody stashing Series 1 Young Guns as I am probably wasn't the greatest investment idea ever, but you should have been able to, if you were doing this, pick up a lot of Victor Arvidsson cards, card number 222 in 2015-16 Upper Deck. You could have got hundreds of these. They're definitely selling for around $1 now, 75 cents to $1. So you should have been able to get these for like 15 to 25 cents. So I've got mountains of them, and I've sold a bunch for about 75 cents to $1 on here in the last week. So I don't know. He must be blowing up. If I had time, I'd Google him or figure out what's going on over here and see how many I have on the ePack site. But definitely a guy, if you're hoarding some old Upper Deck hockey cards like I am, definitely a guy you might want to look to sell right now, or at least to check to see how many you have. You might have something, man, if you have an exclusive or something nice, man, might have jumped up quite a bit if his Young Gun card is now selling for 75 cents to $1, which is above kind of the common scrap 15 to 25 cent cards on there. But anyways, 10% of my sales came from only 400 of my 31,000 cards. That's astonishing. I had great success selling some of these cards on eBay. If more of these cards come live on eBay, if there's not a huge fee hike on check out my cards, I don't think, I've done so well on this site. He could raise fees a lot and I'd still be killing it. So this site's, just the gift that keeps on giving. I think that's obvious by now, but just wanted to point that out. I had 3,000 in sales, and over 10% of those were from eBay and Amazon, and I don't even play that game. 1% of my inventory was on eBay, and it accounted for 10% of my gross sales. So that's really good. It's a great way to end the year and start off this year, especially if all my inventory or more of my inventory is going to be listed on eBay. Boom, that's going to be more sales, more money. Moving on, most of Sports Card Radio, I had to tweak that website for a couple weeks. Just trying to get all the pages to look decent. I got a new iPhone 7 over here. I need to actually browse through some pages on there and see how it looks on there. That's a slightly bigger phone than the one I had. But basically what I had to do was go through, I think there was 1,800 articles on there. Most of them are fixed. I would say maybe there's about 40 or 50 that probably had put on a list that was like, wow, I don't want to deal with these yet. Other than that, most everything looks pretty good on a phone. Should look pretty good on a tablet. I don't think my brother and I have any real ambitions to work a whole lot on it, but I think it was good just to bring it up into the 21st century or whatever we're in now. And definitely noticeable if you look at the stats. I'm like, wow, you can kind of see that some of the pages that had, weren't their default view was really poor on a phone, and so that reads really bad on your kind of score on your if you're relying on search traffic, which a lot of sports cards is now. If you're not going to do any kind of blasting on social media and stuff, if you don't rank in search, you're not your traffic is going to decline a lot. But if you fix your site, or if you add some content, or in Sports Cards Radio's case, it was just fixing some of these. I mean, 1,800 articles, that's a lot. So just having those all pretty much fixed and nice certainly helps. Doesn't really equate to dollars. Certainly didn't do it for money or anything like that, or dollars. But it was just nice to just bring it into the future and do that. So another site I want to shout out. I don't know if that many people know about it. I don't hear a lot of people except in the Group Break community, really know about this site, Group Break Checklist. But I actually went to this site the other day to just see there were some cheap teams. I was watching one of the Mojo Breaks, and they had some cheap teams left, and so I went to his site, Group Break Checklist, to look to see, what those teams had in this particular product. This is a great website. He basically sorts these checklists on Excel and maybe PDF too, and he breaks it down per team, breaks it down per hit, so you could go and you can see, how many hits are in the Washington Wizards, or what are the exact cards do they have, and you can really compare and contrast really quickly the different teams. And sometimes these checklists are, more often than not, these checklists are coming out like the day the product comes live, or the day before, the day after in some case. And so, not only are customers using this site to pick their teams, but a lot of times the breaker themselves has to use this site to price their teams. So it's a really good website, because you're catching both. You're catching the guys who need to price the teams, and then you're also catching the customers. So super convenient site. It's also good if you collect one particular team, because it essentially doubles as like a team checklist website. You could go and get the checklist for the Washington Wizards basically for the whole year pretty quickly on this site by just going to each page and going to the Wizards and seeing, all the cards. So good for, I think, team collectors, probably good for player collectors. And certainly if you're trying to get into a break and you're trying to optimize what you're buying, maybe you don't care, but if you're doing pick your team breaks, or you're just trying to see how the product breaks out, really good website. That's totally unsolicited. Any shout out on here, by the way, is going to be 99.99% of the time, unless I explicitly state, it's going to be unsolicited. So don't know the guy, wouldn't know him if he walked by me on the street, but he has a nice website, and it's certainly good service for group breakers, I think team collectors, and group break hosts as well. I think if you're a group break host, you obviously know about this site, because he's helping you price these teams essentially. Another shout out, another unsolicited shout out. There was a good interview, and this is it's called That Sports Card Show. Look at his feed, I think primarily is on iTunes, but search that on Google. He's got a Facebook page. He's got an iTunes feed. He interviewed Jaspy's Hobbyland, the owner of that, who also happens to be a former longtime Topps employee. So I thought he had some pretty good stories. I don't really want to spoil it, but I thought he had some pretty good stories about, he was initially, this Jaspy's Hobbyland guy, when he worked for Topps, he was initially in charge of putting stuff for sale on the Topps store. And so they put factory sets. He talked about how many factory sets they sold. It was just a really good, and some insight into, what is the mindset of the card company. It was a good interview, and the breaker. So he left Topps to start, and he started a card store. I believe his sons are involved, and they do a lot of hockey. They do a lot of all the new products. Probably one of the biggest 5 to 10 breakers out there. So it was a good interview. I think I've said on this podcast, the best interviews would probably be group breakers right now, because they're seeing all this product. They're dealing with customers. They're dealing with distributors. They're dealing with car company employees. These guys are kind of on the front lines of this. So that's why it's exciting going to Vegas and Mojo Breaker to be there. It'd be nice to sit down with him, because I would have a lot of questions I could ask them about all the pertinent topics going on in the modern card hobby, because, guys like Jaspy's Hobby Land, guys like Mojo Break, they're on the front lines of this. So it's a really good interview. Jaspy's Hobby. Yeah, anytime a group breakers interview, if I had more ambition, I would just interview group breakers. I mean, that would just be an incredible listen. Just for my own interest and my own, I would listen to it. So, yeah, so when I saw that a group breaker was interviewed and this guy worked at Topps, I mean, yeah, book this guy. So it was a good podcast, good interview, some insightful things. That sports card show. Last little bit, a little ePack, Upper Deck ePack tip. Again, I've said this on one of these shows. Checking my cards is fun. Upper Deck ePack blows it away. So if you think I, sit here and wank off to check out my cards, trust me, Upper Deck ePack is 100 times more fun. Being able to trade, being able to open stuff. When there's a new product that comes out, it's super exciting on there. They have little chat things. It's very cool. Very cool. Tip number 1, if you start doing some trading on there, update your wish list. Definitely, there's a way that when you're viewing cards, either in your own collection or somebody else's, you can do a little heart feature and you could favorite cards that you want. Definitely favorite base cards. Don't limit that to the McDavid exclusive, that nobody's ever going to offer you in a trade. Favorite base cards, favorite cards that you would want. That really helps, because if you go to the chat message box and say, hey, I got a bunch of cards for trade, just send me an offer. It really helps when me going to offer you a trade. I can look at your wish list and be like, okay, he wants these base cards, or he really likes this team. It's pretty clear he likes this team. Another thing to do is you can change your avatar, and most people, they're going to probably change it to their favorite team or the team they most identify with, or whoever they're rooting for. Me, I like to actually change it up. It's pretty clear that the Montreal Canadiens are really popular. The Chicago Blackhawks are really popular, but there are other times where I'm like, oh, this team's coming up, or this team's about to make the playoffs. So I'll switch my avatar to them, so that when I shout out trades, people think, oh, this is his favorite team. So I'm going to send him Toronto Maple Leafs cards. I'm going to send him, usually it's Canadiens or Blackhawks cards, just so that I get more of those cards. Because those are cards are, those teams are popular. And so then if you have more Jonathan Toews cards, or if you had more Canadiens cards, man, that's really good when you want to trade with a Canadian fan, because you've got, what they want. So sometimes you got to think about not only that trade you're making then, but future trades. So I'm always thinking about that. Like, give me all the Montreal Canadian cards I can get. Give me all the popular teams and popular players I can get. Maybe I don't trade it right then, but I can trade it down the line, because those cards generally have value. So 2 little tips there. Update your wish list, and don't be afraid to play around with your avatar if you're a neutral hockey fan. And change it to the team that you want to get cards of. And you'll be surprised that all your offers usually will, or most of your offers, if you change it to Canadians, will suddenly you'll get a lot more Canadians cards. So that's about it. Next show will be all about the Topps 65th anniversary party in Henderson, Nevada on Wednesday, January 18th. Heading off there to Vegas in a few hours, and spend a couple days in Vegas, and then head over to Henderson and check out the party. Should be about 75 dudes and Kris Bryant. So, like I said, the more I think about this, the more I talk about it, the worse it gets. So, but maybe that'll make for an entertaining podcast. Maybe that'll make for an entertaining live feed, or I'll get liquored up and start tweeting, and we got to do something. Got to figure something out. Got to cover it in some kind of way. I will Twitter is Sports Card News. So if you're interested, that's where most of the pictures and most of the, definitely the live stream and any kind of YouTube video I will upload to Sports Card Show, I believe, or just Sports Card Radio YouTube. I bet if you just search that, you'll find it. And I just uploaded, got my hands on like a bunch of like kind of commercials and promotional videos for cards that I just thought was interesting. So if you go, I hadn't uploaded any video since the National, I don't think. So, but I got a hold of all these videos and I just uploaded them, some cool commercials. There's a 20-minute kind of interesting talk that a Topps digital guy gave at a conference last year that I thought was interesting. But go check it out. There's about, 10 videos or something. Most of them are very short. The Topps little presentation was about 20 minutes, but go check it out and look for something from the party on that YouTube as well. Later. Peace out.